Black orphan man sings at train station until Taylor Swift. Famous singer hears him. Cold wind blew through the train station as James sat on his usual spot, an old wooden bench near platform 7. His fingers, rough from years of hardship, held a battered guitar. His voice, deep and soulful, echoed through the busy station as people rushed past him, barely sparing a glance. He was used to it. He didn't sing for money. He sang because it was the only thing that made him feel alive. James had been an orphan for as long as he could remember. He never knew his parents, and the foster homes he grew up in were nothing but places where he felt invisible. Music was his escape, the only thing that kept him going. Every day he would come to the station and sing, hoping that someone, anyone, would listen, but no one ever did. One evening, as he was about to pack up, he heard a voice behind him. That was beautiful. He turned around and saw a woman wearing a hoodie and sunglasses. He could tell she was trying to keep a low profile, but something about her seemed familiar. Before he could say anything, she dropped a $100 bill into his guitar case and walked away. James stared at the money, his heart pounding. He had never received that much before. But more than the money, it was the way she said it, like she actually meant it. The next day, he returned to the station with a strange feeling. He had spent the night wondering who the woman was. As he started singing, he noticed a small crowd gathering around him. That was unusual. Normally, people ignored him, but today they were listening. Then he saw her again, the same woman standing at a distance watching him. But this time, she wasn't wearing sunglasses. And that's when it hit him. Taylor Swift. His heart almost stopped. Taylor Swift, one of the biggest singers in the world, was standing there listening to him. As soon as he finished his song, she walked up to him. "You have an incredible voice," she said. "Why are you singing here?" James swallowed hard. "Because no one else will listen to me." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. "That's about to change." Before he could ask what she meant, she pulled out her phone and started recording. "Sing," she said. James hesitated for a second, then started singing the song he had written himself. His voice filled the station, stronger than ever before. Taylor listened intently, nodding along to the melody. When he finished, she turned to him with a grin. "James, the world needs to hear you." She posted the video right then and there. Within minutes, his phone started buzzing. At first, he thought it was a glitch, but then he saw the notifications. Hundreds. No, thousands. People were commenting, sharing, reacting. He looked up at Taylor, his hands shaking. "What's happening?" She laughed. "You're going viral." James couldn't believe it. A few hours ago, he was just another invisible man in the crowd. Now the whole world was listening, but with fame came unexpected challenges. The next morning, he woke up to a flood of messages. Some were from record labels offering deals, others from journalists wanting his story. But among them was a message that made his blood run cold. "I know who you really are." James froze. No one knew who he really was. Not even he knew his full story. But as he clicked on the message, his past started unraveling in a way he never expected. James hesitated before opening the message. His fingers trembled as he clicked it. "I know where you came from. I know who your parents are." His heart pounded. His whole life he had been searching for answers. Who he was, where he came from, and now a stranger on the internet claimed to have the truth. Before he could process it, his phone rang. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. A deep voice spoke. "You've been looking for the truth, James. It's time you hear it." "Who is this?" James demanded. The voice chuckled. "Meet me at the old train yard at midnight. Come alone." The call ended. James stood frozen. It could be a scam, a joke, or something much worse. But something in his gut told him it was real. He had to go. That night, James arrived at the train yard. The cold air sent chills down his spine as he stepped onto the abandoned tracks. Dim streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows. A man emerged from the darkness. He was tall, wearing a black coat and a hat pulled low over his face. "You came," the man said. "Who are you?" James asked, his voice steady. The man reached into his pocket. James tensed, ready to run. But instead of a weapon, the man pulled out an old photograph. James took it, his hands shaking. It was a picture of a young woman holding a baby. Her face was kind, her eyes familiar. His breath caught. "That's your mother," the man said. "And that baby is you." James felt the world tilt. "Who are you?" The man exhaled. "Your father." Silence. "Don't mind raced. This had to be a lie. His parents abandoned him. He had no family. But deep down, something told him it was true. "Why now?" James whispered. "Why, after all these years?" His father looked away. "Because I had no choice." He pulled out another piece of paper, a faded hospital report. James snatched it and read the words that changed everything. "Baby diagnosed with rare genetic disorder. Expected to live no longer than 5 years." James staggered back. "What?" "You were never abandoned, James," his father said. "The doctors told us you wouldn't survive. We made the hardest decision. We left you in a foster home where you could get medical care. But you beat the odds. You survived." Tears stung James's eyes. His whole life he believed he wasn't wanted. But the truth was far more painful. His father took a deep breath. "I never stopped looking for you. And when I saw your video with Taylor Swift, I knew I had to find you before it was too late." James wiped his face, his emotions crashing over him. He had spent years searching for answers, and now he had them. But they weren't what he expected. A few days later, James sat in a recording studio. Taylor had kept her promise. She introduced him to the right people, and now he was about to record his first song. But this time, his music had a new meaning. His voice wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about truth, about second chances, about realizing that sometimes the stories we tell ourselves aren't the whole picture. As he stepped up to the microphone, he glanced at the window where Taylor and his father stood, watching him. For the first time in his life, James wasn't singing for strangers. He was singing for the family he never knew he had. And the world was finally listening. Life is full of unexpected truths. Sometimes the pain we carry isn't because we were abandoned, but because we never knew the whole story. Before we assume the worst, we must seek the truth, because it might change everything.